Howard Saul Becker's labeling theory. Howard Saul Becker's labeling theory is one of the most influential sociological theories in the study of deviance and social behavior. Developed in the 1960s as part of the broader interactionist perspective, the theory focuses on how individuals and groups come to be labeled as deviant, and the consequences of this labeling on their identities, behaviors, and life trajectories. Becker's insights challenge traditional views of deviance as a quality inherent in certain behaviors and instead suggest that deviance is a product of social processes, particularly the way society labels and reacts to certain actions and individuals. At the core of Becker's labeling theory is the idea that deviance is not an intrinsic quality of an act, but rather the result of society's reaction to that act. In other words, behavior becomes deviant because it is labeled as such by others. According to Becker, deviance is not a quality of the act the person commits, but rather a consequence of the application by others of rules and sanctions to an offender. This means that acts themselves are not inherently deviant, rather, they are defined as deviant by social norms, laws, and the judgments of authorities and society at large. Becker's theory places a strong emphasis on the role of social reaction in the creation of deviance. When someone breaks a rule or law, their behavior is observed and evaluated by others. If society or those in positions of authority, such as law enforcement, teachers, or family members, label the individual as a deviant, this label can stick, influencing how others perceive and treat the individual. Over time, the person may internalize this label, leading them to continue engaging in deviant behavior, which Becker refers to as a self-fulfilling prophecy. This process is often referred to as secondary deviance, a key concept in labeling theory. Primary deviance refers to the initial act of rule-breaking, which may not have significant consequences for an individual's identity or self-concept. For example, an adolescent who shoplifts once might not see themselves as a criminal. However, if the act is discovered and the individual is labeled as a thief by society or legal authorities, this label can influence their self-identity. As they are treated as a deviant by others, whether by being excluded from social groups, stigmatized, or given legal penalties, they may begin to see themselves as deviant, leading to continued engagement in criminal or deviant activities. This repeated deviant behavior, influenced by the label, is what Becker calls secondary deviance. A critical aspect of Becker's theory is the notion that deviance is socially constructed. What is considered deviant in one culture or time period may not be seen as deviant in another. This relativity of deviance means that social norms and values play a significant role in defining what is labeled as deviant behavior. For instance, certain behaviors like drug use, homosexuality, or premarital sex have been labeled as deviant in some societies and periods, while in other contexts, they may be considered normal or even acceptable. Becker emphasizes that rules and norms are created by individuals in power, and thus, the application of deviant labels often reflects the interests and biases of those in authority. Becker also discusses the concept of moral entrepreneurs in his labeling theory. Moral entrepreneurs are individuals or groups who campaign to create and enforce rules that label certain behaviors as deviant. These moral crusaders may be motivated by moral, religious, political, or economic concerns and often seek to impose their definitions of right and wrong on society. An example of this is the temperance movement in the early 20th century, which led to the labeling of alcohol consumption as deviant and the eventual prohibition of alcohol in the United States. Moral entrepreneurs are key players in shaping which behaviors and individuals are labeled as deviant, and their actions often reflect broader social, political, and cultural dynamics. The impact of labeling on individuals is often profound, leading to what Becker calls deviant careers. When someone is labeled as deviant, they may face social stigma, discrimination, and exclusion, which can limit their opportunities for employment, education, or social relationships. These barriers can push individuals further into deviant subcultures, where they may find acceptance and solidarity with others who share the same label. As a result, individuals who are labeled as deviant may develop a deviant identity, which shapes their behavior and social interactions in a way that reinforces the original label. For example, a person labeled as a drug addict may struggle to find work due to their criminal record, leading them to associate with other drug users and continue engaging in drug-related activities. This cycle of deviance and labeling can be difficult to break, trapping individuals in a deviant career. Becker's labeling theory also sheds light on the inequalities and power dynamics involved in the application of deviant labels. He argues that those in positions of power, such as law enforcement, policymakers, and the upper classes, are often the ones who define what is considered deviant and who gets labeled. This can lead to biased or discriminatory practices in which marginalized groups, such as racial minorities, the poor, or the socially disadvantaged, are more likely to be labeled as deviant. For instance, studies have shown that drug offenses are more likely to be prosecuted in lower-income communities, even though drug use may be just as prevalent in wealthier neighborhoods. This unequal application of labels contributes to social inequalities and reinforces existing power structures. Labeling theory has had a significant impact on both criminology and sociology, influencing research on crime, deviance, and social control. It has also been criticized, particularly for its emphasis on the role of societal reaction in the creation of deviance. Critics argue that labeling theory overlooks the agency of individuals and the importance of individual choice in engaging in deviant behavior. Others contend that it fails to adequately explain why some individuals engage in deviant acts in the first place, before they are labeled as deviant. Despite these criticisms, Becker's labeling theory remains a powerful tool for understanding the social processes involved in the construction of deviance. It shifts the focus from deviant acts themselves to the broader social, political, and cultural context in which they occur. By highlighting the role of social reaction and labeling, Becker's theory encourages us to question the fairness and validity of societal judgments about deviance, and to consider the ways in which these judgments can shape individuals' lives. In doing so, labeling theory invites a more nuanced and critical examination of how societies define and manage deviant behavior.